Hey, short attention history nerds. This is 10-Minute History, and I'm Michael Perry. The small 63 feet wide, 33 feet tall adobe structure known as the Alamo was started in 1727 as a stone and mortar church for the Spanish Catholic mission, San Antonio de Valero. The church was still not completed when it was transferred to civil authorities in 1792. It was finished when Spanish troops arrived in 1805, but it was used as a hospital. About this time, it was renamed the Alamo, which translates to cottonwood in Spanish. By the way, I'm highly allergic to cottonwood. During the Mexican War of Independence, it briefly housed Mexican forces under the command of Jose Gutierrez and William McGee. In 1825, it finally became a permanent quarter for the garrison of men under the direction of Anastasio Bustamante, the Captain General of the Provincia Internas. At the time of the Battle of the Alamo, however, the structure had become dilapidated. Men from Bear, Texas arrived in late 1835 and put the Alamo into fort shape by building a dirt ramp up near the top end of the church wall and covering it with planks. They installed an 18-pounder cannon and mounted a half dozen other cannons. The popular story of the Alamo is that rebellious Texans had captured the city of San Antonio de Bejar, modern-day San Antonio, in a battle in December 1835, and afterward had fortified the Alamo, a fortress-like former mission in the center of town. Mexican General Santa Anna appeared shortly thereafter as the head of a massive army and laid siege to the Alamo. He attacked on March 6, 1836, overrunning the 200 or so defenders in less than 2 hours. None of the defenders survived. Many myths and legends have been passed down about the Battle of the Alamo, but the facts often give a different account. Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821, and at the time, Texas, or rather Tejas, as it was called, was part of Mexico. In 1824, Mexico's leader wrote the Federalist Constitution, and thousands of people from the U.S. moved into the region. The new colonists brought slaves with them, but in 1829, the Mexican government outlawed slavery. This didn't sit well with the new settler. By 1835, there were 30,000 Anglo-Americans called Texians in Texas, and only 7,800 Texas Mexicans called Tejanos. Believing they had the numbers to force the legalization of slavery into the Mexican Constitution, the Texians sought out the Mexican politicians to force a vote. But little did the Texians know that in 1832, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna took control of the Mexican government, and he annulled the Constitution and set up a centralist-controlled government. This included the territory of Tejas. The Texians and the Tejanos wanted the Federalist Constitution back as it gave them a voice in the matter of law. Some were fine with the centralist control, but as long as it stayed in Mexico. That was the main basis of the turmoil in Texas, not independence. It's a common misconception that the Texans who rose up against Mexico were all settlers from the U.S. who decided on independence. We already covered that. There were many native Texans, Mexican nationals, referred to as Tejanos, who joined the movement and fought every bit as bravely as their Anglo companions, both sides including prominent Mexican citizens. Among the 187 men in Travis's forces who died, 13 were native Texans, 11 of them Mexican descendants. There were 41 Europeans, 2 Black Americans, and the rest were Americans from states in the United States. Santa Anna's forces included a mix of former Spanish citizens, Spanish Mexicans, and several indigenous young men sent from the interior of Mexico. Davy Crockett, a famous frontiersman and former U.S. congressman, was the highest profile defender to fall at the Alamo. Crockett's fate is unclear though. According to Jose Enrique de la Pifa, one of Santa Anna's officers, a handful of prisoners, including Crockett, were taken after the battle and put to death. However, the mayor of San Antonio claims to have seen Crockett dead among the other defenders. Whether he fell in battle or was captured and executed, Crockett fought bravely and died in the Battle of the Alamo. According to legend, Fort Commander William Travis drew a line in the sand with his sword and asked all the defenders who were willing to fight to the death to cross it. Only one man refused. It was legendary frontiersman Jim Bowie, who was suffering from a debilitating illness and asked to be carried over the line. Gotcha. Thought I was going to badmouth Jim Bowie, didn't you? This famous story shows the dedication of the Texans to fight for their freedom. The only problem, it may never have actually happened. The first time the story appeared in print was in 1888 in Anna Pennyback's New History for Texas Schools. Pennybacker included a later often quoted speech by Travis with a footnote reporting that, quote, some unknown author has written the following imaginary speech of Travis, end quote. Pennybacker describes the line drawing episode and puts in another footnote, quote, the students may wonder if none escaped from the Alamo. How we know the above to be true, the story runs, that this one man Rose by name, who refused to step over the line, did make an escape. Mexican dictator General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna won the Battle of the Alamo, taking back the city of San Antonio from Mexico. This is indisputable. The reason I added this fact is because 7 out of the 10 Texans I asked this question answered Texas. Actually, one of them said America. I weep for the future. Still, many of his officers believed he paid too high a price. 600 plus Mexican soldiers died in the battle compared to roughly 200 Texans. Furthermore, the brave defense of the Alamo caused many more rebels to join the Texas Army. And in the end, Santa Anna lost the war, going down in defeat within 6 weeks at the Battle of San Jacinto. Some men reportedly deserted the Alamo and ran off in the days before the battle. The small defenders in the Alamo were facing the entire Mexican army. Desertion was not surprising. Rather, what is surprising is that some men snuck into the Alamo days before the final attack. On March 1st, 32 brave men from the town of Gonzales made their way through the enemy lines to reinforce the defenders at the Alamo. 2 days later, on March 3rd, James Butler Bonham, who had been sent out by Travis with a call for reinforcement, crept back into the Alamo, his message delivered. Bonham and the 32 brave men from Gonzales all died during the battle. After the Alamo battle, the soldiers under Sam Houston's command were the only obstacle between Santa Anna's attempt to reincorporate Texas into Mexico. Houston was indecisive, lacking a clear plan to meet the Mexican army, but either by chance or design, he met Santa Anna at San Jacinto on April 21st, overtaking his forces and capturing him as he retreated south. Houston's men were the first to shout, "Remember the Alamo." It might surprise you to learn that in early April 1836, Santa Anna had the structural elements of the Alamo burned, and the site was left in ruins for the next several decades. As Texas became its first republic, then a state, it was rebuilt by Major E.B. Babbitt in 1854, but then the Civil War interrupted his reconstruction. It was nearly 40 years later, in the 1890s, that two women, Adina de Zavala and Clara Driscoll, collaborated to preserve the Alamo. They and the Daughters of the Republic of Texas started a movement to rebuild the monument to its 1836 configuration. So there you have it. Facts about the Alamo that have either been lost to history, forgotten, or purposely rewritten. Was any of this new information to you? Did you know all or some of these facts? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and clicking on the bell so you're notified when I upload my videos. Until next time, goodbye.